One of the biggest problems I think there is when you're using like an amp modeler, in a lot of ways, going direct to a sound card, going direct to headphones, going direct to front of house, using in-ears, a lot of what I think is missing is kind of the room sound. Now, this could sort of be solved with a room reverb to some extent, and on great universal audio pedals, they have the room setting as well. One other thing that I think kind of indicates a thing that we need this really to get like the best out of our practice tones and stuff like that, the Wazza Airs, which I think are the best headphone experience going. That's how headphones work, by the way. But Alan Holdsworth actually kind of solved this problem for himself a while ago with the UD Stomp, and if we check the manual there, we'll see that basically he's using multi-tap delays to kind of solve a bit of a problem. I wanted to do a video today about how I think these are, to me, the most satisfying tones to practice with, and they give that sense of being in a space with a guitar amp, in a room with a guitar amp, rather than, you know, listening to a mic'd guitar amp, which I think actually, to me, is really fatiguing and doesn't necessarily always inspire me as much as, you know, if you actually do this little trick. So let's jump into that.
This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses.
Okay, so this idea here, I've got a full Helix preset. I do have some other tones. Most of the other ones are kind of designed around HX Stomp, but I wanted to do this one, which is a little bit more of a complex deal. It's combining two ideas. So we've got the one idea, which is this multi-tap. So I've actually saved this as a Helix favorite, but you can see that essentially this is throwing things to left and right in a multi-tap fashion, basically like Alan Holdsworth did. Alan Holdsworth has talked having this thing called an amp harness, and he was responsible for programming the Yamaha UD Stomp, which was designed specifically for him, in a way that essentially he would use this amp harness to get direct tones, and he called some of these things, you know, like, I can't remember exactly what he called them, I'll flash it up, but like kind of getting that room tone from a mic and sort of spreading things around the room. Not the same as a room reverb, because it's got a bit of a different kind of reflection vibe to it, but I think is really effective if you're wondering what it sounds like. If we got rid of this amp in the room thing, essentially we'd have the actual guitar sound is very much coming down the middle, and then you get delay and reverb on the sound, which isn't actually that like being in a room with an amp, right? Whereas that kind of does have a accentuated feeling of being like an amp in the room. I brought this down the level here to -6.9. Anyway, so the time on the multi-tap for stereo is 100 milliseconds, feedback 0, diffusion 4, no low or high cut, the mix at 100%. Time is 100 milliseconds, so that means that this is 24 milliseconds to the left. Tap 2 goes to the right and is at 41 milliseconds. Tap 3 is at 75 milliseconds, goes to the left. Tap 4 is at 100 milliseconds, goes to the right. We don't have any modulation on. That's kind of what is giving us the essence of. So you could do that after a cab, which is what my other presets do in the amp in the room tones. But what this one is actually also doing is using an idea that Cliff Chase, the guy who, you know, does all the fractal stuff, basically said for an amp in the room tone, you could try essentially having no cab, but rolling off the highs. So down here, I'm going down to 3.8 kilohertz, so quite dark relatively. But that's kind of then a bit of a flatter response than a cab. And then you're getting a different sound here that is getting chucked to the left and right than this one that's got a cab on it. So you kind of got the sound of the cab and then a flatter sound around it, kind of giving us those reflections and stuff. So that is basically. And you could, of course, you know, just try this with other different types of amp and see how you get on with it. And without this, so you could give that a try for sure. Anyway, this has kind of 4 other snapshots. So we've got ambient here where we chuck a space echo. So something like that, and then there's the lead, which is kind of my basic. and then scream. So that's kind of, yeah, what that is. Give that a try if you want to check out some of these tones. Not necessarily the sort of thing you want to record all the time with that on. But something that I could think could give you some really, really lifelike sort of sounds like you're in a room with an amp type experience with Helix. So check that out, the amp in the room presets. Catch you in another video soon. Cheers.